My dream wedding becomes a nightmare. Since my fiancé is always siding. My dream wedding becomes a nightmare since my fiancé is always siding with his sister, which makes me doubt our relationship as a whole. Roy 31 million and I, 30, female, are getting married. We clicked immediately when we first met in college. He is intelligent and endearing. Attractive and helpful. After falling in love, we worked together to plan every aspect of our future, including retirement vacations, a college fund for our children were to live, and how many I adore him for having children. He is both my best friend and my soulmate. Every time I accomplished something, he would tell me he was proud of me. He really encourages me to pursue my goals and aspirations. He would encourage me to pursue endeavors I was apprehensive about by assuring me of my abilities and skills every time I got ready to go out. He would tell me how fortunate he was to have me as his girlfriend and give me a compliment. Roy's older sister Kim, 33F, was 10 years old when his father died when he was just 8. Yummy 55F. His mother never got married again. She is a very kind woman. Kim rarely came and lived in a distant location for work, so I never really got to know her at my nation. We got engaged at an engagement ceremony 8 months ago. The bride and groom typically exchange vows in front of close family members and friends. Kim returned to our city shortly after and got a job here. Things became tricky at that point here. It's common for the bride's parents to cover the wedding expenses. For my dad instructed me to arrange the wedding according to Roy's and my preferences. After hiring a wedding planner, my future mother-in-law didn't become involved in the planning process at first, but Kim followed us wherever we went, including to the caterers, the florist, and the wedding planner office. Roy and I were the only people I wanted. I expressed my displeasure to him that Kim was making something that ought to have been exclusively for us into a third-wheel scenario. He advised me to be more hospitable, as Kim merely wanted to attend her brother's wedding. If she hadn't spoken up and hadn't offered her valuable feedback, I would have accepted it. She would ask pastel as I selected flowers, select a new color scheme. The planner would argue that won't give a proper view to the guests on the far left. If I proposed a chair configuration, since coconut pudding was my all-time favorite dessert as a child, I wanted to serve it to my guests at my wedding. But, you know what? Not coconut, please. I have allergies, Kim remarked on. Roy's constant support of her was the thing that annoyed me the most. He refused to argue or even make concessions when it came to my decision versus hers. He would simply state, as long as you are my bride. It doesn't matter what flowers we have. Let it go. It's not very important. The fact that we are getting married and beginning a new life together is all that matters. It's not just about you, he said, warning me not to be self-centered when the coconut pudding issue arose. It concerns us both as well as our families. We cannot deny Kim food during the wedding because she is family. I was getting extremely frustrated at this point. We seemed to be organizing Kim's wedding rather than mine. When we were searching for wedding dresses, or more accurately traditional attire for our ceremony, it was the last straw. I adored the gorgeous green outfit my mom chose for me, naturally, though Kim had to stick her nose in. Green isn't your color, she said. Roy, agreeing with her, saying try something else. After trying on several gowns, I ultimately selected a rose gold one that I liked, though not as much as the green one. When it was time for Kim to go shopping, she chose the exact same green dress and made the purchase. I went crazy. I left since I didn't want to. Cause a scene there. Roy and I got into a heated argument when we arrived home. Green doesn't go well with your skin, Tony informed me. Kim looks better in it. Quit being such a baby. You had already chosen your dress when Kim chose that one. I was shocked to hear it. I became aware that Roy consistently sided with Kim and never with me. For the first time since we began organizing our wedding, the fact that the man I was staring at was the same one I fell in love with astounded me, because Roy and Kim lost their father at a young age. They had a close relationship. He took her side when it came to our wedding and our vision, even though they were each other's best friends and support system as children. Roy would boast about his sister to anybody he could, even if they were admiring me when we were dating in college. It was frustrating, but it wasn't a major thing, and I let it go since I knew he was very close to her. For example, if someone said that the coffee I prepared it tasted good, he would remark, "If you think this is delicious, you must try the coffee my sister makes." However, since it's our wedding and not Kim's, I can't let it go this time. I screamed at him that if this wedding is taking place, it's either going to happen the way we both imagined it would or it won't. Roy became enraged and shout back that I was only envious of his sister and would never be able to match her. Even though Kim had been nothing but courteous to me, he claimed that I was a bitter person for harboring resentment toward her. She was just trying to help. He said, "I have no ill will toward Kim. All I want is the wedding of my dreams." I began to doubt everything I imagined. Having a child but naming them Tammy because Kim likes the name since Kim enjoys orange. Picture your house painted that shade. It's 2 against 1 in your relationship. Can you predict which side you will always support? Do you truly want to follow Kim's wishes for the rest of your life? Roy will not change, so don't be so foolish as to believe that he would now put an end to the planning. Tell your dad that nothing will cost him a cent before your dad has to pay for something you could later regret. Saving him some cash. I can now see how bleak my future will be if I choose to wed this man. I really want to call my mother and cry. I simply want to give my parents a hug and let them know that I was blinded by love and that they were correct about him. I'll have to wait. Though I cannot allow them to witness my state of misery, I must gather my thoughts and prepare myself to deal with this circumstance. I've already given the wedding planner a call and requested that she stop making any more vendor payments. Update 1. I'm eating coconut pudding at home with my sister, parents, and closest pals to piece together the events. We spoke for a while. I neglected to add Maya, 34F, my sister. She works overseas and returned home a week ago to spend time with me and assist me with the wedding that was then approaching due to jet lag. Maya stayed at home on the day of the wedding dress shopping. My mom, 2 of my aunts, and 4 cousins uncles Roy, Kim, Yummy, the future mother-in-law, 2 of Roy's aunties, and 2 uncles made up the group of 18 individuals that went shopping together. Roy followed me back to his house after I became irate and fled to where we got into a fight. My mom finally lost her composure at the supermarket. She called Kim derogatory names and shouted at her. Team bride and team groom got into a heated argument after Kim replied by calling me some derogatory insults. Everyone was hauled out of the store after Yummy attempted to calm them down by calling the police. Kim vanished. Following the commotion at this point, I got into an argument with Roy and made the decision to remain at my friend's place. Kim didn't have any friends or family members' homes, and she wasn't picking up her phone, concerned for her safety. Roy and Yummy looked everywhere for her. The following morning they finally located her at the home of a distant relative. When Yumi called, I didn't pick up. I experienced a full-blown panic episode at the hospital. My pulse began to race, I began to hyperventilate, and I kept fainting before I passed out. I recall feeling a needle pierce my arm. I spent a whole day unconscious. I don't recall anything, but my companion said that I was awake at one time and acting inebriated. I was in bed when I woke up. At my parents' place, no one talked to me about what had happened or asked me any questions. When I woke up, my mother asked if I wanted coffee and gave me a nice grin. And you know what? On any given day, Mom's coffee is superior to Kim's. Talked to Maya about her life overseas. I got some ice cream and other nibbles from my dad, delaying thoughts of the wedding and the consequences till a later date. Felt fantastic. Maya gave me a hug while I slept that night. I recall tears streaming down my cheeks. In a warm heart, everything will be okay. She insisted on believing in God. Acceptable to cry and express your emotions. I received a call from Roy the following morning. I took it up. I told I was at home when he asked where I was, and he said he wanted to meet at his house so we could sit down and work out our issues. I consented, believing that closing this chapter of my life permanently would be the only way for me to move on. My mom, Maya, and I were driven to Roy's house by my dad. There were Roy, Kim, Yummy, his mother, and his uncle Yummy's brother. Although it's absurd, I believed Roy had acknowledged his errors and would offer an apology. I was mistaken. Boy! Roy began shouting at me for creating a commotion at the wedding dress store as soon as we were seated. He continued by talking about how Kim was furious over my mom's remarks to her and how she might have hurt herself. He went on to say that he and his mother had to spend the entire night driving around the city in search of Kim, and he accused me of being cold-hearted for not returning Yummy's calls calmly. I asked him where I had been that evening. I hadn't picked up my phone. Just like Kim, our argument made me angry. Did he ever think about my welfare before? He remained silent for a few seconds before attempting to speak, but his rambling sentences were incoherent now. I know who is more important to you, and it's definitely not me, I informed him. His uncle stepped in and said to my dad, kids these days fight over the smallest things. You can definitely teach your daughter that married life isn't like the movies and that sacrifices are necessary. In a strong response, my father said, my daughter is the only one who can determine if a problem is little or major. Let her talk to her partner. I know I am the side chick, and your sister is the main chick, I added, turning to face Roy. Being her own husband's side chick would not be acceptable to anyone with any kind of self-respect. Your sister has arranged a wonderful wedding, and you are welcome to marry her. When I watched Roy's face flushed, he slapped me across the face so forcefully that my nose and inner cheek began to bleed before I could react. My dad put him in a chokehold, struck him in the face, then continued to punch him in the stomach. Roy's uncle Yumi and my mother attempted to keep them apart while tending to my bleeding nose. Maya gave me a firm hug. Meanwhile, Kim screamed like a banshee and accused me of something I can't even remember. Maya grabbed Kim's hand and gave her a backhand as she strode at me to strike me. Kim screamed as if she were being skinned alive and collapsed to the ground. At this point, neighbors entered and divided the group. A few minutes later, the ambulance and police showed up. Roy's face was bluish, and he was bleeding from his mouth. He was taken away by ambulance. In another ambulance I was taken. Both families were sitting in the police station when I was transported there after receiving treatment. Roy wasn't present. Yummy came over to me, said she was sorry, and wished me success going forward. After hearing my account, the police asked if I wanted to file charges against Roy. Yes, I replied. They told me that Roy might file charges against my dad since he had a broken rib and a knocked out tooth. We were all led to return home by midnight. My pals and I enjoyed brunch together. This morning we spoke a lot and came to the conclusion that I should begin treatment and perhaps take some medication for my mental health. While my dad continued to make cheesy jokes, we ordered pizza for lunch for my best pal. My mom and I later began reading my post comments on the responses, particularly the ones in which I said I wanted to call mom and cry. Really moved her. She assured me that I don't have to put up a brave front while I'm in pain on the inside and that I should never be afraid to show my vulnerability around them. She expressed her wish that I had gotten in touch with her earlier. I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to leave a comment and express care for a total stranger. I wouldn't have recognized the problems as clearly if it weren't for individuals like you. Even if I had forgiven Roy, I might have had a horrible marriage. I sincerely appreciate you all have helped me to believe in people again. You're entirely correct. Everyone who stated I need to grow a spine, But I would like to express my viewpoint despite the fact that I have a master's degree, and my parents never taught me that these girls in my country are frequently taught from an early age that those who maintain families are good. Girls and those who destroy them are bad. Girls, I wouldn't confront Kim because I didn't want to start a fight because that's what bad girls do. I'm hoping treatment will help me change this way of thinking. In addition to the loss of the relationship in the past, I'm still in mourning for the lovely future I had imagined. I am mourning the death of my life's love who in retrospect never really existed. I feel lighter today, but I know it will take time for me to recover. My parents are ecstatic, but they keep their joy from me since they know I'm still in pain. Since the fallout, they appear to have aged backward. Roy has been released from the medical facility. I wish him and his sister a lifetime of happiness. I'm thrilled to have discovered who genuinely loves me, and you have all demonstrated to me how supportive my family is. I've never made a better choice than to dump Roy. I no longer feel the claustrophobia I felt after Kim moved back thanks to Kim and Roy ruining my happiness. This demonstrates that it was the proper choice to leave him. Now to the next story. Story 2. Fiancé blames me for his life choices then breaks up. Am I the for being and just saying okay? Original post. So IDK. Man, I have been 28 with my fiancé Alex, 34. Since 2020 we met at a friend's party, hit it off and have been together ever since. He finished his doctorate in economics just last year. Since then he has been working at the university. I have my master's in media sciences and decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. Okay, so the problem is that Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was literally so surreal and honestly just weird. For the past few months he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few examples: he told me we were going to paint our wall falls back from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said for sake forget it and never brought it up again. Even when I asked another time, he came home and got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there watching Netflix. Mind you, the house was spotless when I tried to talk about it. He said, forget it. It's not a big deal. This kind of thing became common every time I tried to communicate, tried to figure out what was going on whether it was something I did or maybe he was just stressed at work. He would just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything. He would find something to complain about: the apartment, clothes, me, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then on Monday I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming. And after the last few months I had made peace with it. When I came home he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying I want to break up. Then the verbal diarrhea started. He told me he resented me first because I didn't pursue my academic career further even though I was capable, and he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last word financially, and he hated it. Mind you, I never said anything like, it's my money, so I have the final say. That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our crockpot. Then, he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because I had already started my job by the time he got the acceptance letters, only he never told me he had even applied overseas. He said a few months ago he checked in with a friend who's in that program, saw how they were thriving and decided I ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and him over. I honestly don't even know what that means. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, I'm done. I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending, and it hurt, but after that rant, I looked at him probably with a expression and said, okay, he lost it. He said this is exactly what he meant, that it was horrible. Horrible. We had been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was okay with our breakup. I just asked if he wanted to stay here while he figured out where to go. He said, typical. Of course you're holding the apartment over me, and started running again, so I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent, no problem myself. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50-50 financial split. I make good money, and I'm happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away, always had the mentality that my money was our money because we were building a life together. Of course I had my own savings and fun money, but I honestly never cared as long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me. I was fine with it, more than fine. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the logistics of the split to being a seething complainer about everything. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just feel nauseated by him. At this point I don't know if I should have reacted differently. Edit. Thank you for all your opinions. It was nice to get this off my chest. LOL. Just to clarify that, I don't feel like a victim. I feel like something happened and my relationship just turned bad. He behaved like but that is the extent of it. Very clearly something is going on, but he doesn't want me to be part of whatever it is, and I have to respect that. Now I just have to detangle myself legally from him, and after that I'll just be left alone with my green wall color. I think I might also adopt a cat, as my ex was really allergic to some of O's comments. Commenter: NTA dude basically said he hates you and everything about you. What are you supposed to do, beg for his love when you can find someone who will give it to you readily? Nah, sorry, this happened that you were blindsided. But this will be a good thing in the long run. On to the next F. He sounds jealous, insecure, and emotionally stunted if what you've written is how things played out then. You dodged a huge bullet. Op. He was basically doing his own renditions of 10 things I hate about you. I don't know, I mean he wants to break up with me? Why? Would I plead it is done to a deleted comment. I was really confused trying to take everything in. He talked really fast. And a lot, so I did not know what else to say. Also because everything I do is wrong, I think he would have been even more annoyed if I started to cry or something. Ghosted him. Now I can't ghost him. We have to talk about the lease, about our wedding savings account, and a few other things. To another commenter. Yes, that is easy to say, but I have to wait. To get a response from the landlord we have to inform the bank, etc. So until I don't have confirmation that I am in the clearer, I am keeping him unblocked. I have him mute the all commenters. Sounds like his ego couldn't handle you. Being the breadwinner is not your problem. He could have communicated like Anne. Rather than seething in his own insecurities, he sounds emotionally weak. Oops, which is so dumb. He is a doctor in economy and past pursuing becoming a professor. Commenter. Dude basically hates himself for decisions he took without ever consulting you. He chose his comforts, but now since others seem in a better position he is venting on you and making you the culprit. NTA, but your man has a little brain and doesn't know what to do with it. Oop, I would have supported him if he wanted to move away. IDK if we would have stayed together because LDRs are hard, but I would have been 100% supportive. Maybe he resented you for being successful while he wasn't, but that is the thing, he was successful. He has even published a few papers in important magazines and is on the way to he is becoming a junior professor. Objectively really successful. This is all just so weird. The girl I've been with, a man like that, they want drama, they want toxicity. They will up your life out of pure insecurity and hate you. Dodged a massive bullet. I'm sorry this happened. You deserve better. Wish you the best. Oop, then I hope he meets the Talon North Star of his dreams. I prefer my boring, happy life. Commenter. What country are you in here in the US? The average person would have accumulated debt if they made it that far in their education in Germany. Update post to start. Alex moved out pretty quickly after the breakup. He has been staying with a friend, and we sorted out everything like mail subscriptions and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Luna, but I have been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Luna, Amun, and Kamar. She is still at her foster home for now, but I have visited her a few times, and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mom around like a shadow, and I can't wait for her to move. In the first week of December I've already gotten her bowls, toys, and a bed by the window ready. Now onto what happened last week. I was out showing someone around the city. He is the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed. It was nothing special, just walking around grabbing coffee and pointing out useful spots in the city. Apparently Alex saw us. I didn't even realize he was there. But later that night I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public, said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up, and told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming through. They went from angry to desperate, with him saying things like, at least admit you were lying to me, and was anything about us even real? It was exhausting and honestly a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, this guy isn't my boyfriend. He's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of family friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent, but Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened. Even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We are done. I've made that clear. After I didn't respond to his texts, Alex started calling. I didn't pick up, but the voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his new number too. Feels ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend I went out to a bar with my friends a few hours, and guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me, he came straight over. He was clearly upset, asking to talk, and I told him no. My friend stepped in, and thankfully he left without causing a scene. But it ruined my night. It felt like I couldn't escape him no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. Told him he needed to leave, and if he didn't I would call someone to make him leave. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken and honestly a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote to his best friend about the situation but pleaded to talk to him. He said he would. I'm serious. Considering getting a new phone number and possibly even talking to someone about how to handle this legally if it keeps happening, it feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Update post to November 28, 2024, 3 days later. Thanks for the concern and support I've received. I'm fine. Really, a lot of people suggested things like getting a restraining order, but I just want to clarify that it's not as simple as walking into an office and asking for one. The process involves proving there's an immediate danger to your safety. Providing evidence like text calls or witnesses and then attending court to get approval is not something you can do lightly or without solid proof, and no, I'm obviously not getting a. I've also seen people diagnosing Alex with various mental health issues, and I want to ask everyone to stop. Yes, something is clearly wrong. But I'm not a doctor, and neither are most of you. It's not fair or helpful to label him with something like bipolar disorder or anything else without real expertise for what it's worth. I don't actually feel like I'm in danger in the past month. These were the only 3 incidents that happened. I don't think he's actively stalking me so much as he just knew my patterns. At the bar we were at is my favorite spot, and it was a party of one of my closest friends, so it makes sense that he might have guessed I'd be there when he showed up at my apartment. He knew what time I usually got home. The city tour is the only thing that might have been more intentional, but it could also have been a coincidence that triggered everything anyway. This is the end of it. Yesterday Alex came over with his mom and one of his friends. At first I didn't want to let him in, but he promised me that this would be the last time I ever saw him. I agreed, mostly because his mom and friend were there and I figured it would be more awkward to argue on my doorstep. When we sat down, Alex admitted that he was going through a crisis. He told me he was mad at me, but he didn't know why. He said he doesn't like me, that I annoy him, but that he weirdly still loves me, which is why he went crazy when he saw me with someone else. He assured me there wasn't anyone else on his end either. He said he felt like he was going insane. He talked about how he feels judged for being older and not being able to give me the life he thinks I deserve. He said he hates his colleagues, hates his job, hates everything right now, and that everyone and everything annoys him. He told me he feels old and like he should want kids at this point in his life, but he doesn't, and that thought terrifies him. He said he just wants to be alone and not talk to anyone for a while. I didn't say much. I mostly just nodded because I didn't know what to say. After he was done, he told me he was leaving. He's on some kind of mental health leave from work, and he said he's leaving the country on Sunday. He's going to South America to spend time in nature and find himself. He thanked me for everything and said he was sorry for how he acted. Then he just got up and grabbed a few things he had left at my place and walked out. His mom was inconsolable. She kept apologizing to me over and over, saying how embarrassed she was by his behavior. I told her it was okay, and that she didn't need to apologize to him. She cried a lot, and his friend ended up driving her home after Alex left. I don't really know how I feel about all of this. Part of me is relieved that it's over. Part of me feels sad for him because he clearly doesn't know how to deal with everything he's feeling. Mostly, though, I just feel tired. I'm glad he's taking steps to figure himself out. But it's not my responsibility anymore. Some of O's comments on not getting a editor's note. It was more than likely a downvoted troll who asked, but I liked O's response. You can't buy guns at an Aldi. It's more dangerous to own a when you have no training with it than not owning one. Commenter: he's a little young for a midlife crisis, but certainly the man is having issues with his life choices, and it's tearing him apart. Your empathy is warranted, but in the end those troubles are his, not yours. Hopefully this is the last you'll hear of him. Good luck to you. Oops, it's just a life crisis. Then I guess who knows. Update same post December 3rd, 2024, 5 days later, about 6 weeks from the OG post. Edit December 3rd, he is definitely gone. My friend sent me some of his stories of him at the airport and then about a day later in Bogut, so yep, he is gone. I am safe, and on Friday I get to pick up Helios Maximus first. LOL. Heli for